Hey everybody, this is James from My Take on Reality. In this episode, we're going to talk about Season 5, Episode 10 of Before the 90 Days. In this particular video stream, I'm going to call this Mike. What the what? Mike is a 34-year-old man who's from New York, who's engaged to Ximena from Colombia. They met online and have been talking through text and video chats for over a year. Ximena doesn't speak English, and of course, Mike doesn't speak Spanish. Granted, Mike doesn't know how to tell her anything, but he does know how to say, I love you, like every 6 seconds. It's kind of crazy, and it's creepy. It's clear to anyone who watches the show, Ximena is using Mike. Oh, I get it, you don't believe me. Roll it! Time out. At this moment, I'd like to recognize the gold medal champion in the hoodwinked Olympics, Mike.
But James, that's not fair. Mike doesn't have anybody to counsel him.
Wrong. See, Mike has had several people, including his brother, father, grandfather, and friends, trying to warn him. You would think a fireman would recognize when somebody is sounding the alarm. As we catch up with Mike in this episode, he tells the audience that he's going back to Colombia because Ximena has been acting distant, acting strange. He wants to go and figure out what's going on. Here's what's going on, Mike. She's getting a vitamin D from another provider. She's visiting the boneyard. She's going to Pound Town when you're out of town. Before Mike leaves for Colombia, he has to sit down with his dad and grandfather. Surely they can talk some sense into him. Yeah, it's during this conversation that Mike reveals that Ximena wants to get plastic surgery. Yeah, I'm sure we didn't see that coming. Because it just seems like everybody who comes from a foreign country on this particular show always wind up at a plastic surgeon's office before they sit down for a job interview. Maybe that's what they should start doing. Start putting job applications in some of these plastic surgeons' office so maybe some of these 90-day people can find some work. And of course, Mike tells her she's fine just the way she is. But she's adamant about getting her mommy makeover. This has all the fixings of your boss asking you to pay to train the guy who's taking your job.
What the what? I'm not doing that.
Now, of course, Ximena wants Moneybag Mike to pay for the surgeries. Now, I'm going to take a minute to celebrate the OGs. Mike's dad and his grandfather chime in with disagreement. Dad follows up with,
Are you still sending her money? Any kind of money?
Mike, of course, says, oh, I pay half her rent. Yeah, and OG Dad says,
I think that should stop.
Time out. Half her rent? Half her rent. Seriously, half her rent. Bruh, if you were half a man, you would have been cut her off. Nobody in their right minds think you're condescending half her rent. You better act like you know. You sending the whole rent and not $1 short. And you better not be late.
But James, why do you say that? You don't know her life.
No, I don't. But her mama do. Roll it! Ximena, have you thought about if you end things with him, then you'll no longer have a way to pay for an apartment? That you'll have to start working? Now I call the ladies and gentlemen of the church's attention to what the mom said.
You will have no way to pay for your apartment, and you will have to start working.
Read it again.
Have to start working. Start working.
This means homegirl ain't got no job. At this point, Mike hasn't physically seen Ximena in 2 months. And it only took her a month and a half before she started acting crazy and went basic. So according to Mike, now he has to go back to see her in person so they can rekindle their love. After Mike drops his little gem on his dad and his grandfather, Mike's dad, in his confessional, dropped this little gem. You can't buy love because when the money runs out, the love is gone. Now, I don't disagree. Money can't buy you love, but if you have enough of it, you can rent it for a little while. I would add, though, To Mike's dad's little commentary, it's not just when the money runs out you lose. It's also when somebody comes along with more money than you or a better opportunity than you can provide, because then they're gone. Can we be honest? This is an example of transactional love. This is a business relationship, not a romantic one. Mike is trading his resources for her time, period. Of course, Mike, never the one to be outdone, tells his family she's the only woman he's actually loved. Now, unfortunately for Mike, loving someone doesn't guarantee that they'll love you back. Like, I feel bad for Mike. Due to his stature, his hobbies, and experience, Mike comes off almost childlike. Ironically, that's exactly how she's treating him and how she's taking advantage of him. And let's look at all these red flags of this episode. Mike hasn't seen Ximena in 2 months. Ximena has been distant and frigid for the last 2 weeks. Even though Mike is paying her rent, she is now demanding plastic surgery on top of everything else that he's given her. When Mike touches down, he discovers that Ximena didn't even come to the airport to meet him. What? Time out. If I'm paying your rent, your bills, and taking care of your kids, why are you not meeting me at the airport? It's not like you have some place to go. It ain't like you got to get up for work in the morning. Of course, after Mike realizes that she ain't coming, he makes his way to her apartment. The one he's paying for. And I got to tell you, he's better than me. Because his first statement was basically, "Hi, I love you." And this chick just kept walking. Somebody like me, I would have turned right around, took my checkbook, and walked right out that door. Especially after we see why exactly she's mad at Mike. Hold on, buckle up, Buttercup, because this gets even crazier. Now, Mike tells her sister he's come down to spend some time with Ximena and the kids and to get to know the family better. That's respectable. Immediately, Ximena starts cracking her knuckles, like old school style, right before the fight after school. Mike, of course, is oblivious. She then responds, he already knows the family. Mike, red flag. Who doesn't want their fiance to get to know their family better? After all, when you get married, your family is his family, right? She had the energy of, you don't need to spend time with them because you aren't going to be around long enough. Just pay to get my headlights adjusted and you can go. Now, of course, because red flags don't scare Mike, and there are obviously no warning signs whatsoever that he can see, Ximena tells her sister Mike wasn't allowed to come unless she got her surgery. What's worse, she's annoyed with Mike coming down because her surgeries were scheduled 2 days from the day Mike came to town. I know what you're thinking. But James, you made it a point to tell us that Mike has been paying for everything because she doesn't have a job. Correctamundo. She doesn't have a job. This genius got money from a loan shark. A loan shark. Why would she get money from a loan shark? Oh, that's because Mike was slow with the money and she had all these opportunities she had to take advantage of. So she just thought she'd borrow the money from a loan shark. I mean, what could go wrong? The fact that she knows a loan shark is indicative of how she lives her life. She has way too many reaches into the criminal world. What do you mean, James? I'll tell you. Her ex is a hitman who threatened to kill her. The second baby daddy is a convict who was in prison when they conceived the baby. She admits to dating drug dealers. And by the by, this isn't like taking out a loan from Citibank. Citibank, hey, sorry, I can't pay you back. My money got messed up. I'm in a little over my head. I can't afford to give you the money right now. Oh, well. Worst case scenario. Well, we'll see you in court, young lady. A loan shark? I don't have the money.
Well, what should we break first?
And here's a little incidental quick point. Loan sharks aren't in the habit of loaning out money they can't get back. How is she ensuring repayment of this loan? I'm going to go with 500 on it's Mike. This isn't Ximena's loan. This is Mike's loan. She asked to borrow the money before she had the funds secure. So either she's taking Mike for granted or she's living this crazy life where nothing can go wrong because she's Ximena, the keeper of the golden cooch. In tandem to this, another huge factor is when you get in bed, figuratively, possibly, literally, with these types of people, you are pulling your family into it too. She has kids. How hard would it be for the loan shark to say, tell Mike he should send me my money, because it would be terrible and quite a shame if something were to happen to little man over there. Bottom line, the only implant she needs is for a new soul, because the old one is dead, worn out, dried up, and is black as hell. And I want to feel bad for Mike. I do. But I can't. He's ignored advice and all the red flags. Of course she thinks she's going to get the money from you, dummy. When was the last time you said no, Mike? Here's a quick reenactment of their entire relationship as we see it on 90 Days. Ximena to Mike.
I had my first son with a one-night stand.
That's okay as long as we're honest with each other. I love you.
I met my second son's father on Facebook.
That's okay. I love you.
He was serving a lifelong prison sentence for murder.
That's okay. I love you.
We talked, I fell in love, and on my second visit to see him, I got pregnant.
That's okay as long as we're honest with each other. I love you.
On purpose. Oh, I even raised my legs to increase the possibility that I would get pregnant.
That's okay. I love you.
Oh yeah, and I used to live with a hitman who threatened to kill me at some later time. Tahi.
That's okay. I love you.
Oh yeah, remember when you told me how important it was you had kids of your own? Yeah, well about that, I can't do it because after the convict's kid, I had my tubes tied.
That's okay as long as we're honest with each other. I love you. And on that last point, we got to stop right there. Time out. Hey, Mike, remember way back when, like 2 whole months ago, when you met with her father to ask for her hand in marriage? And the dad had told you that he didn't want to have another situation where Ximena gets pregnant and he has another baby father out there because he didn't want this situation to repeat itself? Roll it! Because the kids have affection for you. And she's already had 2 cases with the kids' fathers, and I don't want a repeat case. I wanted to talk to Mike about Ximena because for me it's very important that what happened with Ximena and the kids' fathers doesn't happen again. Because she has taken things lightly and they used her and the kids were left without a father. Bro, how can a situation repeat itself if she's already fixed? She can't have kids. So he doesn't have to worry about another baby daddy unless... Any of these, I would have pulled the cord on this whole relationship. I'm telling you, if she were to turn around, all she would hear out of me after that... Later in that episode, she's telling him that he can't come to town unless he pays for her surgeries. He shows up anyway. She's sitting there basically ignoring him, looking annoyed and pissed off, cracking her knuckles like she's about to punch him in the mouth. No sooner than that happens and everything kind of settles down a little bit, she looks him right in the face and she says to him that she plans on going out clubbing later that night and she'll only be out for a little bit. Oblivious Mike, he gets excited. So he says, well, I'm not that tired, even though I've been up since 3 a.m. and I flew for 12 hours to come see you, and I don't have to work until late tomorrow, so I can go too. Like, dummy, you weren't invited. She didn't say it like a question. Do you want to? Hey, how about if we? She said, I am going to the club. I'll be back in a few. See you when I get back. See, that's the part that's left off, where she says, I'll be back in a few. The part that's left off is where she says, see you when I get back. The next day we catch up with Mike. See, apparently he left after a little bit and Ximena stayed. Mike tries to wake her up before he starts working, but homegirl is knocked out. Later, she comes downstairs, pours a monster glass of milk, and just sits down at the table. And it's clear to anybody who had a wild night out that homegirl is still feeling the effects. Like she is still going through it. Now, after a little bit, Mike asks her, "What time did you come home last night?" Home last night? Home last night? Dog, she got home mid-morning. She came at 9:30. You haven't seen your man in 2 months. Y'all supposed to be getting married in a couple months. You don't even spend the first night with him? At this point, I'm like, Mike is hopeless. You're hopeless. There's no help for you, brother. A long time ago, my brother gave me this piece of advice. Nobody can walk all over you unless you lay down for them first. And Mike, she's already acting crazy. What do you think is going to happen when you get married and you bring her back to the States? She's going to be down in New York City partying until 10 o'clock in the morning, maybe all week. And she's going to leave you at home by yourself with her 2 kids and a stack of bills. Now, beyond all this, I'm looking right at Ximena. Lady, you got kids. Everybody deserves a break from time to time. I get that. But you have responsibilities. But James, how do you go out and still honor yourself and your responsibilities? I want to tell you, you go out, you drink, you eat, you dance, you have a good time, you go to a comedy club, sing karaoke, whatever. But you always make sure you're ready to deal with your kids the next day because you're still a parent. You're always a parent. All this did was show how selfish Ximena actually is. Wow, mind blown. Because how do you introduce your kids to a man and say, he's going to be your new dad, he's going to take care of you, and knowing full well you have no intention of respecting this man or being with this man because you're only using him. On top of that, you borrow money from a loan shark to get something for yourself. And you do all this never considering what would happen to them if you can't pay the money back. Because again, you've already borrowed the money. Now you're going out treating Mike in a way that if he was anybody else, any one of my homeboys would have got up and walked out and would have left you sitting there by yourself, which means you never would have got the money to pay the loan shark back. And don't get me wrong, because I'm going to be hard on Mike too. Because as one of the adults in this situation and the wannabe potential stepfather to these children, you have a responsibility too. In life, there are people who are doomed to make shitty life choices. Then there are people who make shitty life choices by choosing to be with people who make shitty life choices. Ximena is the poster child for making shitty life choices. But Mike, you're also making choices. You've chosen to ignore all your friends and all the red flags that have been presenting themselves over and over and over again. You are choosing to attach yourself to this person. Somebody who is essentially self-destructive. The dating process is a lot of things. One of those things is the process of elimination. Does your love interest display the type of behavior that eliminates them from the possibility that you can move forward and someone you can live with? Taking the approach that everything is going to change because you love them, you get married, or you have a child together is folly at best. But honestly, there is a point where it's just plain old stupidity. All right, so that's...
'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die.